Hiya, I'm Georgia Goddard, and I'm going to be continuing with the topic of backgrounds. This week I'm going to focus on thumbnails, which are useful not only for concept artists, but for any painter that needs to work out composition, value, and really the building blocks of what they're going to paint. I'm going to be honest here and say that I don't really use thumbnailing as much as I should. So really a lot of this is going to be me experimenting with techniques, and it's going to be a learning experience for me as well as you guys. So I've set up my thumbnail sheet already. It's just an A4 canvas with 10 sections because I'm going to be doing a lot of thumbnails just to figure out exactly what I'm going to be painting, because I've only got the very loose concept in mind of the sort of barbarian woman and some rocks, so it's not really anything I can begin to paint just yet. So I'm going to go, we need to lock the transparency of the first section. I'd say never work on direct black or, well, full black or full white, because then you have no room to either lighten it or darken it. I'd say go for a middle grey, just so you can darken it and lighten it as much as you need to. So I'm just going to scribble around, because like I said, I don't really have a great idea of what I'm going to be painting, which is why thumbnailing is good, so you can just fiddle around with stuff. Don't need to be zoomed in too much as well, because all thumbnailing is supposed to be is just a loose sketch to work out composition and all the elements in the painting. So first I'm just going to be working on what I want to be in the actual painting. So we'll start with the woman. So I'm going to get a soft round brush at 50% opacity, just to allow more flexibility with mark making. You want to take the shape controls off, but keep the opacity controls on, so you have better control of obviously the opacity. So just going to dark grey and just work into the focus point. So I'm going to have the barbarian just in the focal point there, the top left one. Probably at first anyway. Obviously as you develop it a bit more, the positioning might change, the composition will change, and it's good just to have, so you can make a more informed choice when deciding what is going to be in the final painting. Another useful tool when thumbnailing is the Lasso Tool. This just allows you to create hard shapes with crisp edges, instead of the softer ones that your brush will allow. I'm going to do quite a high horizon line for now, because I think I want to do like a forest, because this is the painting I'm going to be developing over the next few videos. So I'm going to try and put lots of textures in it, like trees, rocks, metal, everything like that, just so I can show you guys how I'd make those textures using the custom brushes that I discussed last week. I sort of realised as I started painting into it that I should probably work on the horizon line and the background first before I try and put any foreground elements in it. So there's a little better learning experience for me there. Another useful tool when using the Lasso Tool is the shortcut Control and H, which basically just hides the dotted ants and doesn't block your view basically. I've decided I'm going to put a lake in the background, some mountains, and just to keep it quite busy, but not so busy that it distracts from the focal point, which is the barbarian woman. So as you can see here, the Lasso Tool gives you the flexibility to keep the hard, solid edges while still working some shading into it. So as you can see, I'm just having a bit of play around with the shapes and start to add more of a foreground element here. So I'm thinking I'll have a forest in the middle ground. And to add some contrast to where the focal point is, just going to add some light values. Okay, so obviously I've just got the basic composition going on here now. You can see I've put the barbarian woman in the foreground there. So my next steps will be just to play with the composition a bit, maybe position the barbarian somewhere else, put the forest somewhere else. I'll want to add some trees in there, maybe anything like that. But for now, I'm going to move on to what would be my step after doing these thumbnails, which would be to figure out exactly what pose I want the barbarian woman to be in. So for that, I'm just going to open a new canvas, another A4 one, and I'm just going to basically just have a doodle around. Just to see what kind of position, what kind of pose I want the barbarian woman to be in. So they'd just be little scribbles basically. So I'd have one maybe with her arm over her shoulder, maybe with a massive sword, overlooking the mountains, or maybe holding it at her feet. Keep this one open for reference, just so I can have more of an idea of how she's going to interact with the background, because that's another important thing when painting. Make sure that everything's interacting. Doesn't just seem copy pasted on the top of the background. So it should be kind of windswept. Maybe should be looking across. We could do a back view of her, perhaps. Obviously, gesture drawing is an entirely different lesson. If anyone wants me to, I can do a separate tutorial just going over the basics of gesture drawing, with the lines of action, that kind of thing. But for now, I'll just stick with backgrounds. So obviously when I've got more of an idea of how I'd position her, where she'd be, exactly what composition I'm going for in this piece. That's when I'd obviously start working on details and develop colours, develop the values a bit more, that kind of thing, and then I can actually begin painting it. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, any comments, please do let me know in the comments below. If you like these videos, do feel free to check out my blog, where I do this kind of video on sort of a weekly, bi-weekly basis, and also post process videos and feature books and artists that have helped me along my way. If you have any questions, do feel free to add a comment, send me a message, and if I don't answer it there, I'll put it in another video for you. Okay, so thank you for watching. Bye.